Yeah, I tried to fillet a fish and a double cheeseburger a couple days ago.
You think it's better than a McDouble?
Yeah.
It's something they do, like they toast the bread. So cussing, like you can cuss, just keep it like PG-13. And this is stupid. You know, what do you guys think about the Harden trade? What has Houston done? So the major storylines of the NBA, right?
I got my Luka jersey in my car. I thought about pulling it out. But maybe when they win.
You should wear the jersey.
Look like Luka.
He does. You know, as you're talking through things, if you fumble on words and you just want to say, hey, let's reset, then you just call that out. I'm just going to start with, I'm Trey, and then Robert just go, I'm Robert, and then Jacob just go, I'm Jacob. And then I'll go into the intro. I'm Trey.
Wow. All right, start over.
You ever seen Miss Doubtfire, Jacob?
Yeah, a long time ago. I haven't seen him forever.
Get is on the way. When he meets Jack Lundy at the restaurant, he's like, give him a double, so I need to catch up. Or what is he? Then he's like, scallywag.
Yeah, he's like, bully.
Weren't you originally going to school for sports broadcasting, or what is it?
Yes, it was like, well, it was sports journalism, then it changed to sports management, and then it changed to finance.
And so you started out in sports journalism, and now you're on a 10th rate YouTube channel that has 15 subscribers. Way to go, man. You made it. I'm Trey.
I'm Robert.
I'm Jacob.
Welcome to the Trey Show, guys. This is our first episode of NBA Talk. On the show, we're going to be talking about all things NBA with the focus on the Dallas Mavericks. We love the NBA, and we hope you guys enjoy the show. So, guys, the Mavericks had a tough loss to Utah last night. They've lost 3 in a row. Jacob, since you clearly look like Luka, I'm going to pass it over to you first. So what were your takeaways from the game? What did you think after watching it?
Yeah, so this was the first game back with the quarantine boys back. Dorian Finney-Smith, Josh Richardson, and Dwight Powell. Cleveland still didn't play, but those 3 guys played and they started. Well, Richardson and Finney-Smith started. Powell came off the bench, and I think it was pretty evident that they hadn't like touched a basketball in 2 weeks. If you could tell by Dorian Finney-Smith's first couple shots, they were very short. But it was definitely good to get back. They made some good defensive plays early, and Finney-Smith and Richardson are really 2 keys to the Mavericks' success on defense. But then the game got out of hand pretty quickly. Utah is on was a 9-game winning streak, now a 10-game winning streak. And at the end of the first half, the Mavs were down by 21, and it was really frustrating because the Mavs were going little 8-0 runs, 10-0 runs to get within 10. Right. And then just like that, Utah would hit 2 threes and get an and one by Rudy Gobert.
So I have a couple notes on the COVID protocols and what happens. So I want to talk about that. But Robert, I want to kick it over to you and get your impressions.
Yeah, I think because of the fact that we were going to see, some players back healthy from quarantine, I think that me personally, I was hoping at least that some of our issues would be fixed immediately. And like Jacob said, it was obvious that some of these guys, going to have to knock some rust off. What was surprising was, just watching the game, there was seemed to be, kind of a lack of effort after the first half, defensively specifically. It seemed like they just got frustrated. Utah was moving the ball around really well. They were knocking down everything, easy baskets. It was just like demoralizing. It was demoralizing to me to watch. So I know that for them, it had to be, and like Jacob would say, we're a good offensive team, so we would go on our runs, 7, 8, 9-point runs, but I mean, they were answering back. And I think that a team that already knows that they struggle on the defensive side of the ball was just demoralizing, and it affected their effort. You could see that throughout the second half, typically when you come out and make adjustments, come out with a little bit of extra fire, and it just wasn't there from the start of the second half. So it was disappointing, but at the same time, I think we all have to remember that we're incorporating some new pieces. Josh Richardson, Finney Smith, James Johnson, stuff like that. So with, communication and stuff like that, it's going to be, we're still a work in progress, and that was outside of the COVID stuff. So hopefully they can get things turned around.
Yeah. And as a fan also, and just as a team, like 6 hours before the game, they announced Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing, who's their best player. So as a fan,
Yes.
you expect a hot team to cool off a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, talking from, we have a text message thread that we were talking about it, and you guys were talking about the game early on. This is a good opportunity. We're getting 3 players back. Donovan Mitchell isn't playing. So I think everybody kind of felt like it was an opportunity to get a win. So a couple things about the COVID protocol. So they're in quarantine for 10 days. So a lot of times these guys are locked in their hotel room with nothing but a Peloton bike.
Yeah,
in Denver. So they can't, they're not, I guess they can probably have a basketball in their room or something, but you take, they're basically 2 weeks without touching a basketball. That's a huge challenge. Probably the most concerning thing to me, from what you guys said. And I want to also call out that the Jazz were off of a back-to-back. So you go, Donovan Mitchell isn't playing. We're getting 3 key players back. They're on a back-to-back. Hey, we're going to be able to talk about a win on our first NBA talk show tomorrow. And obviously that didn't happen. Lack of effort defensively. So that's something that I've heard echoed today throughout the various media outlets. And Robert, you called it out. So Jacob, did you see that? Do you agree with that? And then just to both of you guys, how concerned about that? Because effort is, to me, that's driven by obviously the players, but that's a coach thing. So is there an issue with, not to raise a red flag and, Stephen A. Smith it, but is there an issue with Carlisle? So Jacob, what did you think about the effort? And then let's talk about Carlisle a little bit.
So I thought, the effort, so a team's on the second night of back-to-back and not that team is the one losing. The effort battle is never a good thing. But it's demoralizing doing a Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley, or Rudy Gobert and Joe Ingles doing a pick and roll, just like seamlessly every single time.
Easy
Joe
money.
Joe Ingles went off. But I mean, before the 3-4 guys got COVID, the Mavs were like 4th in defensive rating. And that's without Porzingis, who's, a really good rim protector at the very least. And then they plummeted since then. I wouldn't be surprised if they were the worst defensive rating team since then, but they're definitely not top 5 anymore for the season.
Wow.
So I was actually thinking in my head, like, who is more important to the Mavs defense, or just Mavs in general, Porzingis or Kleba, Finney Smith, and Richardson, and that was heavily answered. Definitely the three quarantine guys. But yeah.
Robert, what are your thoughts on the effort? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think they really miss Kleba. He's so versatile. In that, he can guard guys on the post, he can get out on the perimeter, he blocks shots, he brings the effort, and so they really miss him. As far as like it being a coaching thing, I think Rick is one of the best coaches in the league, so I wouldn't quite go there yet. I think the team is just looking for some chemistry. I think maybe the communication on the defensive end, because when you see what Utah did to us, it was all of the easy buckets. It was almost like a communication thing. It's kind of like a breakdown. Trey, like we've seen like the Cowboys get blown coverages, or every time they run the ball it's like 7-8 yards, and it's like, okay, something isn't right. The defense isn't on the same page, and it doesn't look like the Mavericks defense is on the same page. I think Kleba, Powell, for as much heat as he takes in the media, is a good communicator on the defensive end. He hustles. Effort's never an issue with him. So I wouldn't go as far as saying it's a coaching issue. I think this is just on the players, man. I think they need something to go right for them. Um, get a couple wins. Winning cures everything, right? So I think if a couple things go right with them, they'll get it turned around. Jacob, that's a really good point. I didn't know that we were that high in defensive efficiency
Yeah, I think it was like the
before everybody got
Cavs.
hurt.
Yeah, I think it was like the Cavs, the Knicks, and the Lakers were the only teams ahead of them, or
When was the
something like
last
that.
time that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually,
Which,
and that's like part of. I know we're going to talk about this later, but that's part of the offseason moves, flipping Richardson for Curry, basically.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think it's a coaching thing until they get some consistency playing together, until Porzingis can stay healthy for extended period of time, and like their top 7 players can stay playing together for at least like a month.
Well, and back to the COVID stuff, it seems like even when players have come back, it takes them some time to work themselves back in. So, you guys probably know me. I like to overreact to sports things and say, well, maybe we're just not good enough. Maybe, whatever. But I definitely think looking on the bright side of this is they're nowhere near where they're going to be, I would imagine. So another interesting stat / alarming to me, because I'm a big, get to the free throw line. When you're hurting and your shots aren't falling, the one thing that is consistent is getting to the basket. It allows you to break the other team's flow. It allows you to get the players on the other teams in foul trouble. So the Mavs only had 9 free throws last night, and Luka only had 2. So Robert, we'll start with you and then go to Jacob. What are your thoughts on?
Porzingis had 0 too.
Wow.
What's Oprah? Yeah, that's right. You text that
Porzingis
yesterday or today, Junior. Yeah. So
Man.
what are your thoughts on that and why?
Yeah, I completely agree. And Luka's 2 free throw attempts. I mean, it's all bad. So 9 total as a team, 2 total for Luka, and then like Jacob said, 0 attempts for Porzingis. And so I think that just goes back to I was talking to Senior before we got on, just to get into sports talk mode. And we were just talking about just the lack of ball movement, and how we've been more and more, turning into kind of like an ISO team. It seems as if people are kind of sitting back and waiting for Luka to make something happen. And I think when you play that one-on-one basketball like that, it would seem as if, if the ball isn't moving, you're not getting defensive players out of position. You're not moving those chess pieces along with the ball in order to get these free looks at the lane to where they got to come over and protect the rim. And so I think that the way we're playing right now, with the lack of aggressiveness, we're not playing as a team, all contributes to, the lack of free throw attempts. And you laid out the positives. I mean, that's all stuff that we're struggling with right now is we need those. They need to see the ball go on the hoop sometimes, and then it can turn things around. So yeah, it's concerning, especially with KP. I mean, 0 attempts, it's not good at all.
Yeah.
Not good at all.
Yeah. For the Mavs to get to where they want to be, KP to play at like bubble KP level before he got injured, where he was like, you could argue he was an all-star, if not better. Like 28 and 10, that's what he was averaging, 2 blocks.
Wow. What do you think Jacob, what do you think his what's holding him back? Is he still not 100% healthy? Is he not being aggressive enough? Or
yeah, so I mean, he's only played like 5 or 6 games, and those 5 or 6 games he's playing with not starting caliber players. Like there's a lot of players that have been playing for the Mavs prior to this last Utah game, like Wes Iwundu, Cauley Stein, who have no business like playing 30 minutes a game. They're like they're bench players that come off the bench and are good off the bench because they're playing against bench players,
Yep.
So Richardson, Finney-Smith, Kleba help, and Luka and Porzingis will help space the floor for Porzingis. But I'm not a huge fan of Porzingis. I'd rather Porzingis start inside and work his way outside than vice versa. Seems like a lot of games he starts from outside and just
he's got great hair.
He does.
I mean,
I heard
Yes.
I heard on the ticket today that they said he gets someone to come into his house and cut it every week.
Yeah,
I
he's
heard
got to
that. I heard
manage.
him say that.
He's got to manage
Yeah.
that part. He's got to keep it straight,
Perfect.
man.
Yeah.
It's what I strive to have every day. Okay, so any last words or last thoughts on the game yesterday, and then I want to look ahead to the game tomorrow and kind of get y'all's thoughts on what can we do different. And it is interesting with the COVID scheduling, where they're playing teams in the same area or playing teams multiple times, almost kind of like playoff basketball, right?
Yeah.
And we're obviously huge playoff NBA fans. And the one thing that you find out about a team is when they lose one day, how they come back and they respond the next day. So again, there's a lot of other variables, from the COVID guys to injuries to other things. So I'm certainly not saying this is make or break, but what are, I guess first, any last words on this game before we jump to the next to the upcoming games?
Go ahead,
I
Jacob.
would say it'll be interesting to see if Mitchell plays, see how much that changes. But I mean, Utah's the number 1 ranked team in 3-point shooting. And Gobert is a matchup nightmare for the Mavericks. They did, I mean, I don't take this for what it is, but they did a better job in the fourth quarter. Porzingis did of handling Gobert, but that might have been the Jazz being disinterested. I'm not really sure. But if Porzingis is aggressive on defense and holds his ground, he'll at least, and once more, the more and more he gets his feet under him, he'll be able to choose which way on the pick and pop, pick and roll to guard which person he needs to. Yeah, I'm definitely really interested to see the game tomorrow. I'm pretty sure they won't come out as like sloppy as they did. If we were to make a bet, I would say first quarter Mavs definitely would
You
win
taking the Mavs in the first quarter cover?
Yeah. Not sure about the whole game.
Carlisle's giving them the business today, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Junior, what are your we kind of got into the looking ahead to the Jazz tomorrow. So any last thoughts on this game and on the Jazz game tonight?
Yeah, just we're not hitting the panic button yet. We realize players have been out. We're still, we're implementing some new pieces. We gave up some offense to get some defense, so we're kind of prioritizing some different things than we have in the past. So, and I feel confident that Rick will get it figured out. So we're not hitting the panic button yet, even though yesterday was bad.
And then quick hitter. So after they play the Jazz tomorrow, they play the Suns twice in a row. How do you guys? We'll start with you, Jacob. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think Devin Booker is very questionable for those games. I saw he's not playing tonight or tomorrow night, so he's their best player to me. I think he's better than Chris Paul. Definitely, like potential wise, he is. But they opened the season against the Suns and they lost by like 8, I think. So it should be a good rematch. Ayton versus KP is something to look out for, because Ayton isn't close to Gobert, but he's still a good center. I saw something earlier today that said the Mavs had like the 5th hardest schedule so far, and then going forward, because remember they've only released half the schedule until like February. Yeah, and going forward they have the 25th hardest, or 26th. So it gives them some like if they're playing some lesser teams, not the Nuggets and the Jazz and the Suns every night, then if they're playing some like terrible teams, it should help a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think that the Suns pose another bad matchup. Booker, for the amount of time that he's been in the league, has been a Maverick killer. He always goes off on us. Chris Paul, same thing, has always been a thorn in our side. And then Ayton provides another bad matchup inside. It's kind of like a recurring theme. It's kind of a recurring theme that we have a bad matchup inside. With KP. I know he's coming back from injury, but even before, it's just it's going to be tough for them. Like Jacob said, we lost to them in the opener, so I would expect some similar struggles. Hopefully, Luka can put us on his back and get us through this.
Hopefully Cleveland's
this
back
tough
by
part.
then.
Yes.
Carlisle said he's questionable. He's not going to play tomorrow, but he's questionable for then.
Who is
Yeah,
it? Who,
so that'll
Jacob?
help.
Maxi Kleba.
Gotcha.
He
Okay.
provides good. First of all, great defense, and then he'll be the starter at the 4, and then Finney Smith at 3, Richardson at 2, Luka at the 1. But yeah, if they play Porzingis at the 5, they're always going to be, because he prefers being at the 5. He said it in a post game interview against, I think, the Spurs or something like that. He prefers being at the 5. It lets him have more options in the offense. But with him being, I mean, he's 7'3", but he's not like a huge, strong center. So with him not being a rebounding force and just like a tank, I think they'll always be down rebounding. But when they're down rebounding and terribly down in 3-point shooting and
Right.
defense
It's just
is bad, you can have like
snowballs.
you have one of the 3, but not all 3.
Right.
All right, good stuff, guys. So let's go ahead and close this topic out, and we'll move on to the next couple topics.
Why are we laying all the issues of this team on Dwight Powell? Like, come on,
that's what he
man.
was. That's what he was saying.
Yeah, he was just kind of going in on Powell, and I'm like, okay, Luka has a lot of things that he can improve on as far as being a leader. I think he gets taken out of the mental side of the game, like by the refs. If calls don't go his way, he's back on the other end complaining. The ball's going the other way, it leads to easy baskets. I think it lets that get to him. But, when we talk about like the offseason and the acquisitions and stuff, we have swung and missed on a lot of our targets. And sometimes it's because.
You want to just go into it now?
Yeah, we can.
Let's just go into it now. Go ahead.
We
just keep going.
So basically, I mean, it's just, so Vasic is laying a lot of the problems at Powell's feet. We have Luka, who's a superstar. We got KP, who's out, but he's returning from, an injury. I look to some of the guys that they have prioritized and looked at as assets, but haven't taken the next step yet. And I'm talking about, even though they're fan favorites, I'm talking about Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm talking about, Jalen. We need Jalen Brunson to take another step. There's quite a bit of young guys that they were reluctant to put in a package to bring somebody in that have to take the next step, this year. And Kleba was one of those guys, but I can't include him in that because he has improved and actually leapfrog, guys like, homegrown guys like Powell and Dorian Finney-Smith, and Maxi being one of those, and he's leapfrogged them, and he has taken the next step. We need other guys to do that, especially if KP is going to play the way he plays. I mean, it's just he's just a perimeter oriented player. So anyways, he actually, Vasic, agreed with some of the stuff that I was saying. I think that Powell, I think Rick loves him, so he keeps him in the lineup. But he was struggling, and I think he misses some of the pick and roll opportunities that he used to get with like Barea and Seth. Mm-hmm. And we sacrificed some of that offense for more on the ball defense and Josh Richardson and stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, we need those younger guys to start stepping up, man, if we want to take the next step.
Yeah, I think Brunson kind of is what he is. I think he'll be a good bench player, but Brunson can't be like a starter on a championship team or even like a deep playoff run team.
I like Brunson's game, but let me ask you, do you feel he's a starter? Or he's better coming off of the bench?
Yeah, definitely off the bench. Me, at least.
Do you think he's a there's been a lot of talk, going back to Vasic and stuff like that, and putting a ball handler next to Luka so that he's not always having to carry such a heavy load.
Yeah.
Do you think Brunson can be that player? Starter or bench player is one thing, but is Brunson a dynamic enough ball handler to take the ball out of Luka's hands, do you feel? Because I know for me, I don't. He's kind of like you said, he is what he is.
Yeah.
He always makes I compare him a lot to like Derek Fisher. He would be my player comp. Like Derek Fisher, come in, do all the right things, knock down a few threes for you, run the offense, but he's not going to be your creator. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't think he can either. I mean, I think he can in stretches, but if you're gonna have him starting and playing 30 minutes plus a game, I don't think he can be that
Yeah.
good enough to be the secondary ball shot creator. Actually, I think that's what Josh Richardson is hoping to do. At least I haven't really seen much of it yet, but
Yeah.
I mean, I know he can somewhat create. But I think that's going into this next offseason. That's what they'll look to get, because this offseason was heavy on defense and enforcers.
Yeah.
I think this next offseason, and a big reason they got like James Johnson a 1-year deal. Hardaway's expiring. And they didn't really do much, I think, is because this next free agent class is insane compared to like this last year. Obviously Giannis signed, but Josh Richardson's a free agent too, which is kind of
Yeah.
scary.
So they, since we're talking about the off season and stuff, like I think they did do a good job at taking advantage of the opportunities that they presented themselves. Like you said, this free agency class wasn't all that.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want to give a guy a max contract that's not going to make you, that much better? Put you in the luxury tax and stuff like that. But I think that we did a good job of like acquiring like trade assets, guys that we may be able to flip, guys on 1-year deals, so that next year, if an opportunity does present itself, we can jump on it. But at the same time, it didn't sacrifice like what they were trying to accomplish for this year, which was like more of a focus on defense, because I think we did get better. I think once everybody gets healthy, we'll see that. Like with Josh Richardson being the 3-and-D guy, hopefully, and take a little bit of the load off of Luka. Then they did a decent job.
Yeah, no, I like this offseason a lot. Even like their draft, I mean, they haven't played much. Josh Green's played way more than the Mavericks ever expected him to play, I'm sure, because of all the COVID stuff.
Right.
But yeah, just defense. Because last year they were like the number 1 ranked offense, but you have to be somewhat balanced. You can't be number 1 and number 25, But yeah, Josh Richardson, his shooting 3-point shooting last year in Philly was terrible. That roster was like one of the most like oddly constructed rosters ever. Like Al Horford and Embiid and Simmons and Tobias Harris and Richardson. It's just like uncomfortable. So I think as the season goes on, Richardson will definitely his 3-point percentage. He'll be actually a 3-and-D guy, not just a D and below average 3-point shooter like he was last year.
A D and throw it down into Embiid in the post guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Josh Richardson, I think we're hoping to see that it unlocks, some of his offensive potential, like with being with Rick. Hopefully Rick can put him in the right spots in order to his offensive game to flourish the way that people seem to think it can. Like they felt like the narrative was that he was in a bad fit, like in a bad offense, a stagnant offense. With Simmons and Embiid and all of them over there, and moving over here, we were hoping to see, his versility and see him flourish. And
back to Miami days.
Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is, because he hadn't got to play a whole lot, so we're still kind of like waiting. We don't know where we are yet.
Yeah, it's very weird. That's why I don't want anyone to overreact. There's a difference between using like the COVID stuff as excuses and overdoing it, but there's also like some excuses are somewhat valid,
The reality.
So, but
it's a real
to your point about the Finney Smith, I think he's good, and I think he's really progressed each year. I mean, his 3-point percentage has gone up and he's gotten better at defense. But I will say I think he has to be the 5th best starter if they want to be like a serious contender. Richardson, Luka, obviously, Porzingis, obviously, and then Finney Smith would be the 5th best.
Yeah.
After Kleba. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. We need to upgrade on that wing.
I'll ask a generic question. What do you guys think they need to add to win a championship, or do they have today, assuming healthy and Porzingis plays to his potential? Obviously everything has to go right to win a championship, but so do they have what they need, or do they need to add something?
I would say like for this year, if everything went right, then they'd be championship contender, like serious championship contender. But I think they need a 3rd star or a 2nd star, depending on how you look at Porzingis. Another primary ball handler, like a Bradley Beal type player. I mean, my ideal dream is Klay Thompson, but that's not going to happen, obviously. But that's like the ideal player I could see.
So what if Porzingis is the third best player on the team? That's ideal, obviously, but maybe that's the
because then you'd be looking at like if it was Bradley Beal, let's say, for example, who's very frustrated in Washington. I don't know if you've seen some of the highlights, but he's like has his head in his looks just sad to be there.
Yeah.
DC.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, if you look at it like a Luka, Bradley Beal, Richardson, Kleba, Porzingis starting five with Hardaway and Brunson and all them, Burt coming off the bench, Finney Smith, like that'd be really good. That'd be, I think that's like second or third best team in the West right there at the worst. And I also think another thing to make them another addition to make them a championship contender, a real championship contender, would be to get a big man that's just like an aggressive rebounding defense big man.
Yep.
I was thinking yesterday, it doesn't even have to be an elite big man, just someone that's not Willie Cauley-Stein or Dwight Powell, because they're more of offensive minded and pick and roll, pick and pop. Well, not really pick and pop, pick and roll mostly. But I was thinking even like just a Dwight Howard coming off the bench, just get you rebounds and defense and has fouls to give, or like I was dreaming of Ibaka during the offseason, but they didn't end up getting him. But someone like that, just aggressive, tenacity, nonstop, and just because if he does it, if he's showing insane effort, then that kind of goes around the team too. But
maybe we can bring old Dennis Rodman out of retirement. He was a Maverick before.
Yeah, Dennis Rodman.
What do you think, Robert, about what do they need to add, or how close are they?
Yeah, I think that I agree with Jacob. I think we need to put a ball handler next to Luka to give him a break, so that he's not carrying such a heavy load. And then, just like how they did when they won their championship back in, 2011, when they acquired Chandler and put him next to Dirk. Porzingis is not Dirk, but he's in that similar mold in that he's perimeter oriented. He's not, a banger on the inside. And so we lacked toughness, man, when it came to some of those games. Just to be honest, like Dirk is tough, but it was his style of game that was not, that didn't really, not conducive to playoff basketball in some cases. And so as soon as we put Chandler there, okay, now that's off Dirk's plate. He doesn't have to worry about that. Now he can just go be Dirk. I think with right now, we don't have that. And like Jacob said, Tyson Chandler wasn't the best center in the league. He wasn't even elite, but he was a serviceable big man that gave us grit, that gave us rebounding, that gave us defense. And so, putting somebody like that next to Porzingis so KP can just go be KP and worry about scoring and picking off some blocks and some rebounds when he can, then I think that's the recipe. But as far as who and how, we've struggled to put guys with them so far. So,
yeah.
Well, and I wonder. Go ahead, Jacob. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've always had the dilemma in my head, because Porzingis has been pretty vocal saying he loves playing the five, with the pick and roll with Luka. So when I think of who a good center to get, like Dwight Howard, for example, it would just be in my head. I can't create that lineup because Porzingis wants to play the five, but I don't know if the benefits of Porzingis playing the five on offense are better than the benefits of having better rebounding and defense. It just, you have to see, I guess. But that's always the dilemma I've had in my head. Yeah.
If you have a guy that doesn't care about getting the ball and doesn't care about scoring, which I think watching Dwight Howard in the playoffs last year, he didn't. He knew what his role was. He was content. He was happy. He was coming off the bench, and he would come in and he would wreak havoc, and he would cause problems for the other team. He would, take fouls when he needed to take fouls. He would get people frustrated. And I think he played his role very well, and I think he was a big part of why they were able to win the championship. But anyways, okay. So any closing thoughts before we close this topic off?
I don't got anything.
No, all good.
We're good.
I think we have the recipe for a championship. So I'm glad we're able to get that sorted out on the show.
Call it Mark right after.
There you go. Just let him know. Okay, guys, let's talk a little bit about the expectations for the Mavericks up to this point. What the expectations were coming into this season. So through 18 games, they're 8-10. They're below 500. Obviously, they're in the 11th seed. We talked about earlier, we weren't pulling the panic button, which I agree. There's a lot of factors that I think have contributed to that. Jacob, I really liked your point of, to this point, they've had the the fifth toughest record in the NBA. And for the rest of the season, or was it the second half of the season, whenever we get there?
For the rest of this first half.
The rest of the first half of the season, so the second quarter of the season, they're projected to have the 25th toughest schedule, which obviously schedule helps in that matter. So Robert, let's start with you. Expectations from what you felt like they would be able to do this year. Where are they at, and what do you think? What do they need to do to get it kind of on the right track?
Yeah, I think because in the off season they kind of shifted, they shifted focus in the moves that they made. So minus Brea retired, minus Curry, some of the decisions they made to go more defense rather than offense. It would have been nice to hold on to some of those guys and keep our good shooters together and then add defense to that. But the off season, you can't address every issue every off season. So I think we kind of traded off some offense for some defense and kind of left us right where we were. I think we're the same team that we were last year, just a year older, in which last year I was probably outside of what most people's expectations were. I thought last year, even going into the season, we were like a 6 to 8 seed. And I think that's what we're this year. I think we're going to be right there at the back end of the playoffs, fighting to get in. If things go great, we could get as high as maybe a 6 seed. But a lot of things got to change from now to do that.
So I would say, and then I'm going to kick it over to you, Jacob. I would say that's pretty disappointing. I think they exceeded expectations last year. They have a superstar, right? Which, in Dirk's career, we were obviously all blown away and we love Dirk and we're so grateful for him. But, the jury was out on him until he won a championship late in his career, right? And I remember having arguments. Is he a superstar? Is he not? Obviously, that seems dumb now because of everything that he was able to accomplish. But, you have this guy and you have Luka, and as good as he is, and the bar has to be a championship, right? And I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but you also have to be concerned about keeping him happy. In the way the NBA is, it's not uncommon to change teams, right? We see it all the time. We're starting to see it in the NFL now, even more with quarterbacks. So I would say if that's what we're looking at, I think that's disappointing. But with what they have and the team that they've been able to put together, and going back to what you guys said about the offseason moves, there wasn't really a move that I saw that I wish they had made. And I didn't have an issue with any of their moves. So maybe it was just, they didn't have the opportunity. And at some point we'll need to address, how come we can't land a free agent superstar? Right now, maybe that changes with Luka, and maybe that changes because he had time to spend with those guys in the bubble. And I think that helps, right? Being able to be around those guys and get to know them a little bit better. And I think Luka is very likable. And it wasn't, and not that Dirk was the first European in the league, but it was still different then. Right. He was still looked at as different because he was a big man, but he was a jump shooting big man. He didn't bang down low. And back then that was still a big thing in the NBA. So I think, well, that's my take. Hopefully they're able to exceed that. So Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah. So before the season started, obviously this is recorded when they're 8-10. Before the season started, I would have said the goal should have been to be a top 4 seed. Get home court for whatever that means this year. Hopefully there's fans by the end of the season. But obviously now I would say 6 to 8, 5 to 8, somewhere in that range. Because right now it looks like the 2 LA teams, Utah and Denver, are kind of separating themselves in the West. But I think once this team's healthy and gets chemistry together by the end of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if they're 5th or 6th seed and everyone's looking at them as a dark horse, potentially better than Utah and better than Denver. Some people looking at it as a dark horse.
The infamous, you don't want to play them in the playoffs team, right?
Yeah. That's kind of what they were. That's kind of what they were last year too.
Yeah.
But I think even more so this year, even more warranted this year.
Robert, what do you think? I know you said, you said what you expect them to do. I didn't give you a chance to say what's their bar to you? What's a success? And again, going back to last season, I think they exceeded expectations last season. So
Yeah.
this year, what would you say is success?
Well, so I think, you know, to expand on what you're saying, disappointing, right? It's disappointing that we weren't able to build on the momentum that we had last year, because I think after the season, everybody kind of looked up and said, wow, like we're ahead of schedule. We have this generational talent. We gave the 1 seed, a decent series. And so going into the offseason, it was disappointing that we weren't able to build on that momentum. But I think, for a success for us this year, to be ahead of schedule again, exceed expectations would be probably like a top 4 seed. And the only reason I think that would be exceeding expectations for this team is because the West is just so tough. I mean, the league in general is just so much talent in the league. And I think that, with the lack of an inside presence, when you're going up against some of the teams that Jacob mentioned, the Lakers, the Clippers, may not have that signature big man, but they're physical, long teams. And then you got Gobert. We saw what he did to us last night. And then you have Jokic, which
AD.
we struggle with as well. AD. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's your signature big man. I forgot about him somehow. So yeah, all bad matchups for us. So I mean, I think, to exceed expectations this year, we would have to be competing with them, and
Yeah.
I just don't think we're there yet.
I think more so than seeding, I think winning a series is that would exceed. If we get to second round and we lose the Lakers, okay, like that's not
Right.
something to be super, not this year.
Yep.
To be something super mad about. But yeah, going into the season, I thought Josh Richardson would be competing for most improved player, and that kind of got off track. At least he'd be like a dark horse candidate. And then Porzingis staying healthy is huge, because really this last whole year combined, we haven't seen this team, because whether it be like the offseason move with Seth Curry switching for Josh Richardson or Porzingis not being healthy. Because I heard yesterday was the first game that Richardson and KP ever played together. It's kind of crazy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because the first 8 games or whatever, where they were top 4 in defensive rating, KP was out. And then since then, the game he came back was when all the COVID people were out. Finney Smith, Cleveland, all of them.
Awesome. So let's go quick hitter here. I'm going to ask you guys a couple quick questions. Jacob, we'll start with you, and then we'll move over to you, Robert. So in your mind, who's exceeded expectations?
Exceeded. I wouldn't say. I would say. I don't know. I don't have any that exceeded, to be honest.
Nobody. Okay. Maybe that's why they're 8-11.
I'd say Cleveland when he plays.
Okay.
He's been playing better than I expected. I don't know if you remember, he hit that huge shot against Denver, I think.
Yep.
But Luka's been steady. He got a lot of heat for coming in a little bit out of shape, but since the first 2 or 3 games, he's been back to MVP form, just without winning.
Who are you the most disappointed in?
I would say KP, since he's came back, but that's a little early. He's only been played for 4 or 5 games. The people I'm disappointed with, they've all are coming back off of major injuries. KP with his what was it?
He had a knee. He had a knee. I think it was his ACL, right?
Well, that was his Knicks injury, but it was I can't remember. Well, whatever
From the
his
playoffs
injury
last
was.
Year.
Yeah. And then Powell coming back from Achilles, that's the worst injury, especially for someone who bases their whole game off of explosiveness, like jumping. So Powell's been disappointing to me, because the main thing he offers is energy, which he still has, and then a pick and roll with Luka to catch lobs, and he's looked both of them have looked a step slow. And then Cauley Stein's been disappointing since he's come in, since everyone was gone for COVID. But that's kind of expected. He was never the answer at center. He should be playing against the backups as someone who's coming off the bench, and I think that showed. I think that showed for a lot of Mavs players that were starting with Josh Green, Wes Iwundu. They're bench players.
the backups are starting. That's never a good thing.
Yeah, backups
Yeah.
and starters isn't good. Yeah.
Robert, who's exceeded your expectations?
Um, yeah, like Jacob said, it's kind of hard to find somebody that's exceeding expectations right now. Luka's doing what Luka does. So that's to be expected. I think probably James Johnson. I didn't know much about him coming before we had acquired him, but he's a piece. I think he could be a really nice piece for a championship team. He does things the right way. He does the little things. He brings some of that toughness that we lack. And then, everybody was saying that that's what he was going to bring was the toughness. And then to my surprise, when he gets in the game, they let him play a little point forward too. So he can handle the ball. He's a lot more athletic than I thought. He's a good defender, everything that we're missing. And so I would say, he's exceeding expectations, my expectations at least.
Who are you the most disappointed with?
Most disappointed with, man, it's hard to be down on the guys that are coming off of injuries, but KP just isn't there yet. Powell, but I'll give them a break. I mean, they're coming off of injuries, so probably I would have to say, if I'm picking one, I'd probably say Finney Smith. The lack, I feel like he's reached his ceiling. I don't think he's gotten. I mean, Jacob made the point. His shooting has gotten better, but at the rate that we're acquiring the talent, we need more from him. And he's kind of been the same player for the last 2 years or so. As I was saying earlier, Kleba, I think, leapfrogged all of them. So I'm probably most disappointed in Finney Smith not taking another step.
Gotcha.
And he still has time, so hopefully he does.
So last topic before we get into a little bit of overall NBA discussion. So let's talk just a little bit about Luka. Obviously he's a superstar. We saw what he was last year and everything he was able to do. He still has a lot of growing, in my opinion, that he needs to do, as does anybody at that age. What in your opinion does he need to focus on, or does he need to do to be able to get the team to a championship? And maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's he just needs help around him. Now, what I will say, or I'll pose this question to you guys: can he keep up at the pace that he's going for 82 games? Right, we see guys taking rests, taking days off all the time. And maybe I just missed it. I haven't seen that for Luka, and obviously we can't afford to do that because we're already starting bench players. So what do you guys think about that? What are the things, or the thing, maybe we just do one thing that he needs to focus on to help get the team to the next level?
Yeah, he's played all but one game. It was against Chicago before KPM came back, which they lost. But I think I'm not sure if it was a rest or it was a little bit of ankle, like he twisted his ankle a little bit. I can't really remember. But as far as him improving, I would say, well, going into the season, I was saying defense and free throw and 3-point shooting. And I think he's really improved one of those things a lot. Defense, he's exceeded my expectations at defense. And then his free throw shooting is better this season. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's definitely better than last season. But his 3-point shooting is worse than last season. And part of that, I'm sure, is hunking up shots, because when all the COVID guys are gone, you're the only source of offense really, besides like Hardaway and Porzingis. And when Porzingis is off, you have to do even more. But those were the three things. And then I also saw a stat where his mid-range percentage this year compared to last season was a lot higher, and he's shooting a lot more. And I've noticed while watching too, which if you think of all like the legendary players, they've all had a mid-range they could go to. Kobe, MJ, LeBron, I said Michael Jordan, but just all Larry Bird, all the legendary players have a mid-range. And I didn't see much of it until this year.
Interesting.
And he's shooting really high percentage. Like I think like before 2 games ago, that's when I saw a stat. It was like 56% for mid range. I'm not sure what it is now, because I saw him miss right when I told my dad about that stat. He missed like 5 in a row. So,
You
but
jinxed him. You did the commentator
This
jinx.
last night was Jacob's fault.
Yeah, we can thank Jacob
Yeah.
for that, everybody.
Yeah, I was all excited getting the starters back and stuff. What do you think, Robert?
I think that man, one word, maturity. I think that there's times in the game where he can be taken out mentally. If a call doesn't go his way, he may not get back on defense. The maturity just to evolve into an NBA point guard. I mean, we expect Luka to be. They're already calling him, a top 5, top 10 player. But we need, if he's going to have the ball in his hands that much, we need him to have those point guard skills. A mature point guard, a veteran, in that. Knowing when to slow it down, know when to push the pace, knowing to get guys involved early, getting it to the hot hand, and things of that nature. All that goes into it. The maturity, knowing what to do, and he's young. I guess that's going to come with experience, but I wonder how much of his game he thinks he needs to improve on. He's always been the guy, you know what I mean? And so sometimes it's like, well, they never get criticized.
Yeah.
So, like you said, he came into the season out of shape. It was a short turnaround, man. You know what I mean? Like it didn't have this long drawn out off season. It was the shortest off season they had ever had. And he was, he came in out of shape. So, I mean, he's young, and it's just something that we just have to keep an eye on. But I think it would be in one place, maturity.
Yeah. From the things I've heard he like every offseason he's looked at something and improved it heavily. I think this last offseason it was free throw shooting, just shooting in general. And I think his 3-point percentage will even out throughout the year. I think last year it ended like 32. I think it'll be around there, maybe 33, 34, hopefully. But when he gets more off-ball threes where he's just wide open, waiting for it, I think his percentage will go up a lot instead of all of his threes being off of step backs, because those are, you might as well, like, those are hard shots to make. It's kind of a signature shot, but they're hard shots to make. They're more of like a bail you out once a quarter type shots, not all the time, So that's basically all of his threes have been, which is hard to shoot 35-40% on those.
All right, good stuff. So let's go ahead and close out the Dallas Mavericks discussion. That was real good stuff, guys. Okay, guys, so let's talk a little bit about some of the main storylines in the NBA and some of the hotter teams and some of the teams that we see kind of starting to make an early season push. So let's start with Houston. So Houston, since they've traded James Harden back on January 17th, are 5-2. So Jacob, I'm going to kick this one over to you. What can you attribute that to? And then do they have staying power to keep that up? And we do see a lot of times addition by subtraction. I know that's a generic term. And teams will get a little bit of a bump and start playing well. But, I don't know if it's, hey, we want to show everybody that we can win without this guy. And we obviously know kind of the bad blood that Harden had with the team. And then that seems to wear off. So what are your thoughts? Why are they able to have that record? And how long do you think that'll last?
Yeah, well, for Houston fans, it's like the only thing going right. Deshaun Watson requesting a trade, Astros just cheat, So, but I would say it was a bit of addition by subtraction. Not really in the long term, and not even overall. Just James Harden when he was in full peak requesting a trade mode, he wasn't. James Harden can average 30 in his sleep. There's no reason he should have been averaging 20. So when you have one player that's not really trying, I'm sure he's trying, but you know what I mean. But overall, like, they have no championship chance, or I think they'll be like a 9th, 10th, because they have a play-in tournament this year. I think they'll potentially be there. Christian Wood is probably going to win Most Improved Player. He'd actually be perfect for the Mavs. They got him for pretty cheap, and he would be perfect player for the Mavs. And they actually just got Oladipo as part of the Harden trade, who was, he's borderline all-star. And as the Pacers actually did good on that trade too, getting LeVert, because they thought they were going to lose Oladipo in free agency, but with LeVert's a young star. But anyways, yeah, Harden leaving ruin their chances for championship. But I think they're in rebuild mode now. But it's nice to have a competitive team while they're rebuilding, I guess, for the fans. John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins are nice comeback from injury stories. They both were like out forever with Achilles tears. DeMarcus Cousins killed the Mavs last Saturday. Look like old DeMarcus Cousins. So yeah, I think Houston will be fighting for a playoff berth with teams like the Spurs, the Pelicans, Grizzlies. But yeah, I think it'll be like the Thunder last year. I don't know if you remember, but they made the playoffs kind of surprisingly, and then they just went on full rebuild. Now they traded away all their good players except their young ones, which is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and have 1,000 draft picks over the next 5 years. So I think that's what Houston will be trying to do there. You got like 4 from the Nets.
Old Boogie Cousins was haunting the Mavs, huh?
Yeah, like prime Boogie Cousins.
What do you think?
That's actually, Jacob, a really good point and analogy that you brought up with the Thunder, because I'm here in Oklahoma. I'm from Dallas. I'm here in Oklahoma City, and so I love to crap all over their teams, their coaches, their personnel decisions, their colors, their uniforms.
Yeah.
So, I never thought Scott Brooks was the guy, and then they went and hired Billy Donovan, and I was like, it's not gonna cut it, because the top in NBA players, they're not trying to hear it, man. They got too much power. They got too much control. I didn't think that they were going to respect a college guy. And so you'll run into that with, personalities like Harden, and then you had KD, and he couldn't do anything with it. But then they left, and then the team turned it around because he was actually able to coach. He had, gained some players at coachable talent, and they went on that run, and they were a really good team last year. And so I think that you're seeing the same kind of thing with Houston, in that they got rid of that dominant personality and superstar that is just sucking the energy out of, the team. And so, so it is, like you said, Trey, addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
And so, I think that they just got some guys in there now. They're glad Harden's gone. Even Cousins was coming out, against Harden publicly. And I think that showed a lot of maturity from him, because normally he's the one that is causing the issues.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think that that's part of it. I think that it brought them together. Realizing that Harden didn't want to be there, didn't respect the team to come in shape, not going out in public and putting himself to risk of COVID and stuff like that. So it brought them together. Is it sustainable? I don't believe so. I think that stuff's it's emotional.
Yeah.
It's chip on the shoulder type stuff. It's gonna wear off, and I think, like you said, Jacob, they're gonna end up 9-10 seeds, something like that.
Yeah. Well, they got veterans too, like Wall, Oladipo, Boogie, PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon. That's good enough to be competitive. But is that what Houston really wants next year? Or they want to start getting some good draft picks and stuff?
Yeah,
so
and do they want to? Yeah, and do they want to be there? Right now it's like, they're trying to prove a point, but once that wears off.
Yeah.
Each one of those guys has been an issue at previous stops before. You know what I mean? Wanting out. Like, there's already rumors Oladipo, he don't want to be in Houston.
Yeah, he's a free agent, so that's why I was a little like confused or a little like surprised that Houston didn't get LeVert instead of Oladipo, if that was a possibility. Which reading how Woj tweeted it sounded like it was. But my second favorite team's the Pacers, so whatever. I'd rather have LeVert than losing Oladipo for free. Yeah. But I think the Rockets are. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the Rockets are set up better than the Texans right now. I'll put it that way.
And Pacers need to bring back Rick Schmitz.
I'm set up better than the Texans right now.
Yeah.
They got some issues, man. They got some issues.
Sabonis kind of plays a little Rick Smithy. You got a little hair part going that way and stuff.
I like it. The Duncan Dutchman.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. So let's talk about another team that's always in the media, always on everybody's mind, the Nets. So since they traded for Harden, the Nets are 4-2. Kyrie has been out. Obviously, that was a circus, I guess, and he's been back for a couple games and has played really well from the standpoint of scoring a lot of points. So I know this is a generic question. Do we think it's going to work? I mean, you have to almost assume that they're going to be in the finals, right, against the Lakers, barring a huge surprise. Maybe Utah makes a run at that. But what do you guys think about? And we'll go to you, Robert, first. Is that thing going to work? Obviously, it takes some time, but to me, if you have three personalities like that and they all want to win, then I think that's the recipe for success. I think KD is willing to, maybe step back a little bit, which he might be the best of the three, but from a personality standpoint, he certainly has his quirks. Maybe he's just the least vocal versus Harden and Kyrie. So what do you think? Is that is it a disaster waiting to happen, or you think they'll put it aside and go win a championship?
I think I think it has potential to be if things don't go right, and then start the finger pointing and blaming and stuff like that. So as long as they keep winning and having success, then I think they'll be fine. They'll be right there at the end. It's too much talent to not be. Right now, I think that they're playing pretty much letting Harden. They don't play together a whole lot, all three. They let Harden kind of run the second unit so that he can be him, and I think that they need to continue that because he kind of knows one way to play, man, and is ball dominant. So I think that that's a good idea. So as far as I think what benefits him a little bit is that some of those guys do have success on their track record in being kind of like a number two, playing second fiddle, and that's Kyrie with LeBron, even though he asked out, but also Durant. Everywhere he's gone, he's played with a ball dominant guy, and like as crabby as he is on social media and all his burner accounts, he does have experience and success playing with personalities like that. It wasn't easy to play with Russell, and I'm sure it wasn't easy to step in there and have to mess with Draymond Green every day. So I think that they'll be there, and it'll work as long as they keep winning. As soon as they don't, they'll start having problems.
That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. I saw a tweet. It said Kyrie didn't want to be Robin, but he turned into Alfred because he's now the third fiddle in the Nets. I think like Shannon Sharp retweeted or something.
That's funny.
But yeah, I think from what I've seen, Harden's been he's sacrificed scoring to become a facilitator. I just looked up while Robert was talking. Harden's averaged 12 assists since he's been there. So him just controlling point guard, and because Kyrie's not a traditional point guard who's going to pass all the time. So what really bothers me about the team, though, I think KD and Harden won't be the issue. I think Kyrie potentially will. Not even for him like throwing a fit or anything. I think there'll be more of they lack defense and depth. Because going into the season, they had a lot of depth. LeVert, Jared Allen, Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie tore his ACL. Jared Allen and LeVert got traded. So now they're running with DeAndre Jordan, Joe Harris. Those are two good pieces. But then after that, it's Jeff Green, Taurean Prince, Bruce Bowen, Landry Shamet, people like that. But they do have a player exception where they can get one or two more players. They've been rumors about JaVale McGee, who I think would be a good fit. But yeah, I think minimum they'll be in the conference finals, but I think a failure for them would be not getting to the finals. I mean, that's what they expect.
Absolutely.
They have three superstars. So
any other teams, and we're going to talk about just potential MVP candidates or who's in the running, a quarter through the season early on. Any other teams you want to talk about that have kind of been a surprise?
Yeah, I would say the 76ers, not even a surprise really, but I saw the Josh Richardson for Seth Curry trade as a win-win. 76ers needed defense or needed offense terribly. 3-point, and they need shooting. That's why they got Danny Green, Seth Curry. And the Mavs needed defense. So they're 13-6 right now. Joel Embiid's playing like the best big man in the league, even though Jokic is over there too. That's before I was saying Jokic just kind of running away with it, but Joel Embiid's been playing insanely good this year.
Yep.
So they're number one seed in the East by a game and a half, 2 games. So then I have to say Joel Embiid right now, if the season ended, he'd have to be top 2 or 3 in MVP candidate.
Nice.
And then I would say, as far as disappointing goes, I would say like Miami. I mean, they went to the finals last year and they're 6-12. They've been ravaged with COVID. Jimmy Butler, I think, had it or was close contact. I mean, I watched them play the Celtics or the 76ers one game, and I didn't even know who like half the players were.
Wow.
And I like watch NBA nonstop. So them being 13th place in the East, kind of disappointing. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say I would have thought Butler was immune to COVID, but I guess not.
Yeah, but yeah, I think they'll figure it out. I think they're similar to the Mavs. They just had their best player. I mean, they had Adebayo and Harrell left, but
yep,
it'd be different with the Mavs if they lost Luka. So.
Yep. Junior, what about you? Any surprise teams that you want to talk about, and then MVP? Who do you have right now? It's a surprise. What's in the running?
I think probably surprising in a good way is the Knicks. They basically have Julius Randle and not a lot around him. RJ Barrett was highly touted, very talented, but still young. And they're floating almost at 500 ball. They're 8-11, which for the Knicks here lately is great. They haven't been able to do much. Yeah. They're hanging in there. So I would say that is surprising. If you'd asked me, hey, how are the Knicks doing this year, without really just looking at it, I wouldn't have expected them to be that. So that's a surprise. Let's do one over in the Western Conference, I guess.
Tom Thibodeau's first year coach,
obviously.
Yeah, the Jazz, probably they stick out the most since they just whooped us. But 10-game winning streak. The way they're moving the ball and shooting and defense. Yeah, that's a surprise.
I'd say the Pelicans are a little disappointing. I didn't expect them to be very good, but people want to people last year before the season started, people were asking if you want to start with your team, Zion or Luka. And Zion's been playing well, but I think it shows how important it is to be a ball handler as your superstar, because they don't have that. They have Ingram and Zion, but they need like a point guard.
That is very weird because they're 6-10 and Ingram is having like a career year.
Yeah, and Zion too.
Zion taking the next step. I mean, his field goal percentage is crazy. He's averaging, I think, 25, 26 a game. Yeah. But with those individual performances, it has not translated to wins.
Yeah,
and so they're
getting rid of Drew
there.
Holiday. Drew Holiday didn't help.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that's Van Gundy's first year coaching. We'll see. I was kind of skeptical of that hire when it happened. But
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good stuff, guys. Any last or closing thoughts before we close the show up?
No, hopefully the Mavs can win tomorrow.
Let's do it again. What'd you say, Jacob?
So hopefully the Mavs can show up tomorrow better, more intensity in the first quarter.
Hopefully the next time we're doing the show, they're on a 3-game win streak, right?
Yeah. So, I heard this a couple days ago. Last year they didn't have any 3-game losing streaks. This year they already had 2.
Oh wow!
Not a good start.
Now you guys can go to bed sad.
Well, thank you guys for watching the show. Big thanks to Robert and Jacob. As I always talk about, it's never easy to come on here, even though we talk sports all the time. I remember Jacob growing up, he would watch Sports Center every morning for about 5 hours and eat his cereal. Cool. So he lives and breathes sports, as does Robert, and obviously I'm around there too. So kudos to you guys, and thank you guys for coming on here. Would love to do this again. We can make this a weekly thing. There's obviously plenty of content. We can talk Mavs, NBA. We can expand it to other sports as well. So again, thank you guys for coming on the show. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share. Anything you guys can do to get the show out really helps us. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys on the next one.